Hello, thank you for watching. This is Jackson Bleachers with college football best bets for week 9. It's Thursday. That means there's college football tonight. With it being week 9 already, that means college football is already almost over. There's just barely over a month left in the regular season, and then in about 6 weeks or so, we'll figure out who the top 4, who the college football playoffs are. But going back to week 8, it was not kind at all to teams like Ohio State. They more than likely they're going to have to run the table, and even then, they're going to need some help from other teams, because I don't see how, unless some other teams just completely blow it, I don't know how you overcome a butt whipping by Purdue and make it in the top 4. But teams like Alabama and LSU, on the other hand, only strengthen their arguments for cracking the top 4. And then this weekend, too, this is another big weekend for playoff contenders. And we know for sure that at least one of them will be eliminated by Saturday night. And that's because Georgia and Florida meet in Jacksonville. And with both teams already having a loss, that means the loser's done. And the winner, while they still may technically be alive, they're more than likely going to have to face Alabama in the SEC championship game. And that would be their second loss. So I don't think either team's in the playoff. It would take a miracle, but you can definitely cross off the loser of this game already. In terms of picking against the spread, we had another solid week last week. We were 3-0 last week. That brings us to 18-10-1 on the year. And we took a chance on the winless Nebraska Cornhuskers, and they finally rewarded Scott Frost with his first win as the head man in Lincoln. They destroyed Minnesota on the road. We also took LSU and Florida State as home favorites, and they both took care of inferior opponents with no problem. We'll try to keep it going here in week 9, so we'll get to the picks now. First game, Kentucky +7 at Missouri. Kentucky is ranked number 12 in the country, and somehow they're catching a touchdown and a hook against an unranked Missouri team. Kentucky hasn't earned a ton of respect from most of the country yet, and while I do think they may be slightly overrated, I think they're still good enough to take care of an average Missouri team, much less keep it within a touchdown. And I don't know if I'm going to take the Wildcats on the money line yet, but I have already locked in the Cats +7. Kentucky's only loss came in College Station in overtime, and the Cats' road win against Florida has to be one of their biggest wins in recent memory. They were less than impressive last week against Vandy, but they did end up holding the Commodores to just 7 points at home. Mizzou has losses against Georgia and Alabama, neither of which are anything to hold against the Tigers, but they do have a tough loss to South Carolina. But that loss does have a little bit of an asterisk by it. It was in South Carolina, but here in the SEC, you're used to playing in hostile environments. But way more importantly than it being a road game, most of that game was in an absolute downpour. It was raining so hard at times that you couldn't even see the TV or see the field on TV. And on top of the heavy rain, they had a pretty long lightning delay with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So there's a whole lot of stuff in that South Carolina loss to put an asterisk by. But they still lost, and I don't think South Carolina is that great of a team this year. Missouri did throttle Memphis last Saturday, but this year's Memphis team is not nearly as good as they have been recently. But still, hanging 65 on another Power 5 team that should make a bowl game is pretty impressive. And if you throw out that Bama game, Mizzou's only failed to reach 30 points one time, and then in that one game, they did put up 29, and that was against Georgia. So, Mizzou, as we knew coming into the season, they have a high-powered offense, but I wouldn't expect the offensive explosion this week, because Kentucky has a pretty good defense. In SEC play, Kentucky has held everyone except for A&M under 20 points. And the Aggies scored right at 20, and it took overtime to get to that 20-point mark. I think they were at 13, I believe, at the end of regulation. So Kentucky has held every opponent they've played. They haven't let any offense really get going against them so far this season. And it's not like they've been playing against bad teams. They played against Florida, Mississippi State, South Carolina, and obviously Texas A&M. So I think it's going to be a close game that's entertaining all the way through. I do think Kentucky wins outright, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to put money on it yet. for now, take Kentucky +7, but I certainly would not blame you for taking the Cats on the money line. So we'll move on. This is actually my favorite game of the day right here, and that's Texas A&M +3 at Mississippi State. So we'll keep it in the SEC for this pick, but we will switch from the East Division to the West Division. The Aggies are traveling to Starkville Saturday night, and like Kentucky, they're a ranked SEC team catching points on the road against a non-ranked team. A&M's been killing anybody, or they haven't been killing anybody, but they have been getting the job done. 2 weeks ago in South Carolina, they jumped all over the Cox at the beginning of the game, and they did end up letting South Carolina back in the game, but A&M did win, and they covered the spread. They're coming off a bye week, so Jimbo Fisher's had 2 full weeks to get prepared for, I think, a very average, maybe even below average Mississippi State team. The Bulldogs went to Baton Rouge last Saturday night, and they did not get embarrassed, but it was obvious that LSU was just a way better football team. The Tigers won that game 19-3. Another game where Mississippi State's offense just could not get anything going. Other than that shocker against Auburn, Mississippi State has struggled against SEC teams, especially on offense. Bulldogs were only able to put up 6 at home against Florida, 7 against Kentucky, and 3 against LSU and Baton Rouge. Texas A&M has a very good defense, and Mississippi State will have to get a near-perfect game from Nick Fitzgerald to have a chance to win this game. And that's what throws me off about this game. I don't see how in the world Mississippi State's the favorite. I know it's a night game in Starkville, but I would be absolutely shocked if Mississippi State wins this game. And as of right now, I'm all over A&M +3, and I'm probably going to end up taking the Aggies on the money line. Haven't done it yet, but I'll definitely be watching as we get closer to kickoff. But this one's just one where I don't understand the line. I don't understand how Mississippi State could be a favorite. They have not done anything really this year other than beat Auburn. So, yeah, that one I'm a little confused on that line. In the last game, I got Texas as a 3-point favorite at Oklahoma State. Am I crazy for picking 3 Power 5 road teams playing conference games? Maybe. But if you break the picks down individually, I don't think anybody outside of Stillwater, Starkville, or Columbia, Missouri would call me crazy for any of these 3 games. To me, this game is much more about picking against Oklahoma State than it is picking Texas. The Cowboys got embarrassed a few weeks ago by Kansas State and then followed it up with a loss in Ames to Iowa State. The Cyclones aren't bad at all, but you have to think Oklahoma State should have won that game, especially coming off a bad loss the week before. The Cowboys do have a couple of things working in their favor, though. They have had 2 full weeks to get ready for the Longhorns, and they have the benefit of it being a home night game. Texas is much better than Oklahoma State, but I'm nowhere near being ready to anoint them as a top 4 team. Their terrible loss to Maryland should be enough to keep them out of the playoff in my book, but Tom Herman has certainly got things back on track since then. The highlight of the seasons for the Horns by far is that shootout win in the Red River rivalry, but doubling up TCU had to get a huge monkey off their backs. TCU is not having a great year, but they have been a thorn in Texas' side for a while now, so that win, I think, is just as big as any for the Longhorns this year. The only thing I'm worried about with taking Texas -3 is maybe they're overlooking Oklahoma State. They do have a huge game next Saturday against West Virginia, and with Mike Gundy having 2 weeks to get his team ready for the Longhorns, Texas just cannot afford to look past the Cowboys. But one thing that I do think helps Texas in this situation is they already do have a loss. So when you already have a loss, you're a little more dialed in. So I think if they were undefeated right now, I think they would be on much more of an upset alert. But you never know. They got to show up. They're all college kids. You got to show up every game. But we'll find out. I do think Texas will cover fairly easily. And I think Oklahoma State will make it interesting through the first half, but the Longhorns pull away in the second half. I'm on Texas -3. So the 3 picks, we'll hit them one more time. It's Kentucky as a touchdown underdog at Missouri. Texas A&M is a 3-point underdog at Mississippi State. And Texas is a 3-point favorite against Oklahoma State. So those are the 3 picks for this weekend. We get some more college football starting tonight. All 3 of these picks are for Saturday. And then as always, you can go to jacksonbleachers.com to go a little more in depth on the picks. And you can follow at Jackson Bleacher on Twitter for any updates between now and kickoff to the game Saturday. So good luck. Hopefully win some money, and I hope everybody has a good college football weekend.